Hey everybody, this is Dream, and before I get into this nice big 11 game slate, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Really do appreciate it when you guys do that. Let's go ahead and get into the players themselves. So first of all, we have a nice 11 game slate here. We have really 4 or 5 teams that we could stack. When it looks for the teams that are best in stacking situation, San Francisco 49ers, sorry, I watched football yesterday. San Francisco Giants against Colorado is in a great spot. Atlanta against Washington is going up against Corbin. For those two teams, you could pretty much stack anybody in the lineups. Then from Minnesota, we have them going against Zach Greinke at Kansas City. And the starting five, the top 5 guys plus Warren Walmer are the guys that are stackable in that matchup. Then for the Angels, we have Trout, Otani, and Ward as a stackable situation, and you could also include Rengifo into that. And then for Texas, we have the starting 4 plus Jung, and then Bubba Thompson, and if he plays, Matthews. So we have some pretty good options at the stack. So let's go and get into the pitchers we like. So to start off with the most expensive guy on the board here, Dylan Case at 10,600. Now, he has got some decent upside here. He has scored 50, 40, and 13 fantasy points against Cleveland this year. So he has had one bad game. But in the last 18 starts he's had this season, he's only had 2 games sub 30 fantasy points. So he's relatively safe here. Now, obviously, his price is pretty expensive, but he is somebody you could take a look at as a pretty safe option. Then the next guy I really like is Luis Castillo for Seattle. Now I like him against Oakland, but he did have one bad game against Oakland already. This just not that long ago. In fact, it was the last time that they played them. Let's see if I can find it here. Is it not showing on this? Oh yeah, here it is. So he scored 18 fantasy points against Oakland on August 21st. Now, most of the other games he's getting more strikeouts than he got in that particular game. And out of the last 13 games he started, 11 of them he's had more than 40 fantasy points. And this is a plus matchup. I will point out that some of the Oakland hitters are hitting the ball pretty well lately, but I still think he's a pretty safe option if you want to pay down a little bit off of Dylan Case. And then the third guy that we can take a look at is Charlie Morton. Now, he doesn't quite have the upside as the other guys that I mentioned, but he still has some upside in this matchup, and he's gotten 46 fantasy points the last time he went against Washington. It's just not as likely for him to score that amount of points as it is for Castillo or Case, because he gets a lot of 25-point games mixed in here. But he does get enough strikeouts so he could be pretty dangerous in this situation. I still think that if I had to rank the 3 of them, I would say Castillo, Case, and then Morton, just in the order of how risky I think that they are based on their possible, situations. As for Rodon, who goes up against Colorado, I don't love him for San Francisco against Colorado at Colorado, and I don't love Cortez against Pittsburgh, despite the fact it is a pretty good spot. He just doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, and so that kind of limits his ability. So with that said, let's get into the other position, the first base catcher / first base situation. So my top guy here is Wilmer Flores. He actually hit a home run today, or yesterday rather, against Colorado there at Colorado, and he's super inexpensive at 2,800. Let me actually fix this so I can show you exactly what I want to show you. Last 10 games, there we go. He hasn't been all that great the last 10 games, but up in Colorado, he's going to have a nice advantage. So I think he's in a great spot here in this particular matchup. Then we'll go ahead and get to Freddie Freeman, the next guy I like here for the Dodgers against Arizona. Now he's going up against Trey Jameson, who's only pitched in one game, and he did good in that game. But I don't think that the Dodgers are going to have too much issue in this matchup anyway. They're just too good, and Freddie's one of the leaders on the team. I also like Pete Alonso at a similar price point, or actually at the same price point against Aaron Ashby. He's been extremely good lately, and I look for him to continue that while the Mets are and the Braves are chasing each other to get to the postseason. Then William Contreras for the Braves. The Braves get the fun of going up against Patrick Corbin, who is one of the worst pitchers on the slate. and it's going to be a fun game for Atlanta because they should be able to score some runs, get some home runs, and other things. And if depending on which catcher starts for them, Contreras or d'Arnaud, or both, either one of them is in play here today against Corbin. Then we have Jose Abreu, who his price is making him pretty unplayable over on DraftKings, but his price is pretty good here on FanDuel, where he has some upside in this plus matchup against Aaron Sevilla. Then we have Will Smith for the Dodgers. Again, $3,100. Good savings if you desperately need it, but he's not the most ideal option. And then until his price comes up a little bit, Matt Olson, he's in a really good spot here. He had a really good game yesterday against Washington. Look for him to continue that. He got a double, cut 2 hits. And so I think he's in position to have a good day again against weak pitching, and that will benefit his price as well. At second base, we have Thairo Estrada, who is also somebody that we can hit. Oops, where is he? There you go. There he is. For San Francisco against Colorado. And, of course, he scored 41 fantasy points with a home run, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored, 3 hits, and a double. Just absolutely a great game for him. Look for him to continue from that. Then I have Ketel Marte, who's really inexpensive for what he's been doing lately. He has a tough matchup here, but he's finally gotten out of a slump a little bit, and so I think he's somebody you can take a look at just because of his price only. He's kind of a Hail Mary from that perspective. Marcus Semien is somebody I think is in a good spot here for Texas. I really do kind of like Texas today. And he's been hitting the ball pretty well lately. And then we have Luis Arraez for Minnesota. I think Minnesota is in a great spot against Zach Greinke, and he's been. You gotta kind of look a little strange at his recent games because he doesn't always start, but sometimes he pinch hits. So these 2 zeros you can kind of remove from the last 10 games situation. But he's been hitting the ball pretty well lately, and he's somebody I really think is in a great spot, and he's inexpensive. And then finally, Von Grisham, you could sneak him in here and get himself a home run here against Mr. Corbin as the second baseman for Atlanta. At third base, my favorite option here is Riley. Against Corbin, obviously. Riley hit a home run yesterday. He finally got out of a slump a couple games ago, and he's really starting to hit the ball well. And this is exactly the type of situation you want him in. And then we look at, we got a lot of good options at this position. Jose Ramirez, absolutely crushing the ball lately. Dylan Case is a good pitcher, so it's still a tough matchup for him. But he has been hitting the ball well, and he's kind of matchup proof. Then Jose Miranda for Minnesota. Another guy against Greinke that I think is in a good spot. He's a little bit boomer bust, but his price point makes him playable. Manny Machado looks like he's in a great spot here against Adam Wainwright, and he seems to be matchup proof sometimes. He has been kind of boomer bust lately, but I think he's finally starting to get out of his slump. And then Nolan Arenado for St. Louis has been really good as of late, but he's had a couple off games. But overall, he's been good for a little while, so I think he's in a great spot. I like him a lot better than Goldschmidt for St. Louis in this matchup. And then Josh Jung. Normally, I don't get to him on FanDuel, but he just looks really good today. He's definitely a home run threat in this game, and I think that he's somebody you have to take in consideration, plus his price point's really good. And then finally, Eduardo Escobar against Ashby for the Brewers. He's in a great spot here. He's been hitting the ball extremely well. Way above his average, and I think he's in a spot where he could potentially hit a home run against Milwaukee. At shortstop, we have some good options, actually a lot of good options here. We have Corey Seager, who is averaging almost 10 fantasy points a game last 10. Then we have Bobby Witt, who is averaging 9 points a game. All these guys are in just great situations. Dansby Swanson's in a really solid spot, and he didn't get a good hit yesterday, but he has been a little bit slumpy lately. But again, Patrick Corbin is always a guy that you can rely on to get you out of those types of things. But if I really wanted to go with somebody at this price range, I think I'm going to pick Carlos Correa, who's just been, having some massive games lately, and he's kind of due for another home run, so I think he's in a good spot. Then Lindor is somebody you can take a look at. He's averaging 12 fantasy points a game for the Mets against Milwaukee. And then Brandon Crawford, he's a kind of a cheaper option who has some potential. In the Colorado game yesterday, he got a hit and an RBI and a run, so he got almost 10 points, which is really good for him in that situation. And then Elvis Andrus who has probably been the most consistent player as of late at shortstop. It's sometimes hard to find guys, but look at all these hits, and so I really like him, and his price point is pretty fair, and he's got a great matchup against Cleveland. And then in the outfielders, we have Acuna, who actually is pretty fairly priced. I'm surprised he's still only $3,800 considering his recent games, and he's going to have a heck of a matchup here. Juan Soto is also too cheap. He's finally looks like he's getting out of his slump, and so I think he's in a good spot at his inexpensive price against St. Louis. And then we have, of course, Aaron Judge, who's just absolutely killing the ball lately, who is, especially against Pittsburgh, he could hit 1 or 2 home runs. And then Trout, kind of in the same situation as Judge, just absolutely bulldozing balls. Then I also have Stone Garrett listed here. Now, he didn't have a good game yesterday against the Dodgers, but he's got a little easier matchup here. And he hasn't been that good as of late, but he's still part of it is he doesn't play every day, and sometimes he pitch hits. So you do have to take that into consideration on his recent trends. And then Eloy Jimenez for Chicago. I think Chicago White Sox are kind of underrated in this particular matchup. Most of their guys are pretty good priced over here on FanDuel, and you could definitely take a look at some of their players as options. Eloy's has been extremely good lately, and so he's somebody you got to take a look at. Mookie Betts for the Dodgers also looking pretty solid. And then some cheaper options. Robbie Grossman is somebody you could take a look at. Now, his batting average doesn't really make you super excited, but he's been really good for the Braves as of late, and so he looks like somebody who could potentially hit a home run. And then Taylor Ward for the Angels. He's in a great spot in this matchup against Cole Ragans, and I think he's too cheap to pass up on in this particular situation. Another guy you could look at is Shohei Ohtani, who's less expensive on FanDuel than he should be, and he looks like he's in a pretty solid spot against the Texas. And then finally, Adolis Garcia for Texas. He's in a great spot here, home run potential, hitting the ball extremely well, and I really think he's in a top spot in order to be a home run threat in this particular game. So with that said, I think we have a really solid slate. If you have any comments or questions about the slate, feel free to leave them below. Make sure to check out Discord in the description below. And if there's any players you think I missed, feel free to comment below. And have a nice day, guys.